Lydia Harper woke before sunrise the way she always did. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that still remembers voices. She slipped on her robe and padded down the hallway, touching the wall with her fingertips as she passed family photos. The kitchen light usually came first, then the kettle, then the soft clink of cups. It was her morning rhythm, the one she kept since her husband died. The kitchen was where she felt closest to him. She reached for the doorknob and turned. It didn't move. Lydia tried again, gentle then firm. The metal was cool and stiff, like a handshake that refused her. She leaned in and saw a new brass plate around the lock, shiny, recent. Her heart gave a quiet knock inside her chest. From behind the door came Isabel's voice, calm, sweet, and sharp in the same breath. "You won't need this anymore, Lydia. This is my kitchen now." Lydia straightened her back. "Good morning, Isabel," she said softly. "I only need hot water for tea." A pause. A soft laugh. The click of something heavy set on a counter. "There's a cafe 2 blocks away. I'll bring you something later," Isabel said. "It's better if you stay out of here. I'm reorganizing. Your system doesn't work." Lydia looked at the door as if she could see through it. The old blue kettle, the white ceramic jar of sugar, the recipe card for Theodore's favorite stew. She felt a sting in the corner of her eyes, but she blinked it away. "Is Theodore awake?" she asked, even though she knew he was not. He had flown out last night, a client meeting out of town. "He's gone," Isabel said. "And even if he were here, it wouldn't change anything. This house needs rules." Lydia's fingers opened and closed on air. "Rules," she repeated, almost to herself. "New locks, new order," Isabel said, proud now. "I'll be handling the cooking from now on. Please don't make this difficult." Lydia looked down the hallway. The first light of morning pushed a pale stripe across the floorboards. She thought of the night Isabel and Theodore moved in. How she'd laid out fresh sheets and left chocolates on their pillows. Isabel had thanked her with a bright smile, and then, slowly, little things began to change. The spice rack moved. The knives disappeared from the old block and reappeared in a drawer, blades facing the wrong way. The cast-iron pan, her husband's pan, was retired to the garage. "All small, all polite, all pushing." "Isabel," Lydia said, choosing each word, "this kitchen is part of my home." "Then enjoy the rest of the house," Isabel replied. "I'm creating something modern. You can watch TV. Read in the sunroom. Rest. Isn't that what you like to do?" The words carried sugar on top and something bitter underneath. Lydia pressed her palm against the wood. On the other side, she heard a drawer slide open, bottles clink, the quick snip of scissors cutting packaging. She pictured Isabel, hair tied back, moving fast, rearranging the life Lydia knew. She stepped away from the door. Her slippers made no sound. In the hall mirror, she caught her reflection. Silver hair pinned neat, lines at the mouth, steady eyes. Her husband used to say, "Don't fight the wind, turn the sail." Lydia felt that line anchor inside her. She did not raise her voice. She did not beg. She tried the back door that led to the small patio. It too had a new lock. She pressed her lips together. Someone had planned this. Not a moment of anger. Not a sudden choice. Planned. A text popped up on her phone from Theodore. Landed. "Meeting in 3 hours. Love you, Mom." She typed a reply and then erased it. He needed a clear head today. He trusted people easily, especially those he loved. She could not send him shaking into his day. Instead, she walked into the living room. The morning news murmured from the TV low. The sofa held the imprint of last night's sitting. She poured herself a glass of water from the side table carafe. Her hands didn't tremble. She set the glass down exactly on the coaster. Then she listened. The hiss of a burner, the hard scrape of a pan across metal, Isabel humming a song Lydia did not know. "You won't need this anymore." The sentence kept turning in Lydia's mind like a key. Not "you can't come in today." Not "I need space." "You won't need this anymore." Final. Cruel. Certain. She stood and walked down the hall, past the locked door, past the framed photograph of Theodore at 10 with flour on his cheeks, helping stir cake batter. She climbed the stairs slowly, her body remembering the creak on the 3rd step and skipping it out of habit. The upstairs corridor smelled faintly of lavender from the sachets she tucked into drawers. Her bedroom was neat, the bed made tight, the curtains open to the pale sky. She opened the closet and touched the sleeve of her husband's jacket, still hung where she'd left it. "Good morning," she whispered, and it steadied her more than any tea would have. At the dresser, she slid open the top drawer, then the second. Socks, handkerchiefs, a tin of buttons. In the 3rd drawer, beneath folded scarves, lay a small wooden box, dark with age and rubbed smooth at the edges. She had not held it in months. She had promised herself she would not, unless it was needed. Lydia lifted the scarves and let her fingers rest on the lid. The wood was warm from the trapped air. She breathed in and remembered the afternoon her husband had brought the box home. They had sat at this same dresser, knees touching, papers spread, pens uncapped. He had said, "If there ever comes a day when someone forgets who built this life, open this." She had laughed then, thinking the world would never be so unkind. "People change," he had said. "Paper doesn't." Downstairs, a cabinet door banged shut. Lydia could hear Isabel moving with the confidence of ownership. Lydia's thumb traced the small notch on the box where the lid met the base. She did not open it. Not yet. She was not a woman of scenes. She was a woman of timing. She closed the drawer halfway and looked at her wedding photograph on the dresser. "I hear you," she murmured to the man in the picture. "I'll turn the sail." She straightened, smoothed her robe, and walked back toward the stairs. At the landing she paused, listening to Isabel whistle as if the house were already hers. Lydia's hand hovered above the banister. Calm. Clear. No shouting. No broken plates. The heart of her home had been shut to her, but her dignity was not a door anyone could lock. She went down one step, then another, each one soft and even. On the last step, she stopped, turned toward her bedroom again, and returned to the drawer. This time she pulled it fully open. She lifted the wooden box out and held it against her chest, feeling its simple weight. In the hallway, the locked kitchen waited. So did the morning and whatever came after. Lydia took a long breath, squared her shoulders, and began to walk. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. The house listened as she moved, and the box rested in her hands like a promise she was finally ready to keep. Lydia walked back down the stairs, holding the wooden box close against her chest. Her steps were calm, but her heart beat in a slow, heavy rhythm. Every sound from the kitchen reached her ears. The clatter of pans, the shuffle of jars, the metallic hiss of water boiling on the stove. Isabel was in there, moving freely, taking up space as though she already owned it. Lydia stopped outside the locked door. She did not knock. Instead, she stood silently, her fingers brushing the carved lid of the box. She thought of all the mornings she had cooked oatmeal for Theodore when he was a boy, of the times her husband had sat at the table with a newspaper while she served him tea. Now, her daughter-in-law had locked her out like an unwanted guest in her own home. The door opened suddenly. Isabel appeared with a smug smile and a wooden spoon in her hand, her apron tied neatly around her waist. Steam rolled out from behind her, carrying the smell of garlic and onions. "Oh," Isabel said, her eyes flicking to the box in Lydia's arms. "What's that? Your treasure chest?" Her laugh was sharp, almost mocking. Lydia didn't answer the insult. Her voice was steady. "You've made yourself very comfortable." Isabel raised her chin proudly. "Someone has to take charge. This place was falling apart under your hands. Old pots, old habits. Theodore deserves better. I deserve better." Lydia's gaze didn't move away. She lifted the box slightly. "If you truly believe this is your house now, then open this." Isabel tilted her head, amused. "What is it? Old letters? A cookbook?" She reached forward without hesitation and snatched the box from Lydia's hands. The weight surprised her. She turned it over, looking for a latch. "You've been hiding this away all this time?" she asked, curiosity sparking. Lydia clasped her hands together, resting them in front of her body. She didn't blink. "Yes, for a reason." With a smirk, Isabel slid the lid open. Inside lay a folded stack of official-looking papers. The paper edges were crisp, the ink dark. Across the top of the first page, in bold letters, was the title, Living Trust Agreement. A notary's seal glimmered faintly in the corner. Isabel's smile faltered. She pulled the papers out and scanned the first lines. Her lips moved as she read silently. Then her eyes widened. "What is this?" she whispered. Lydia's voice stayed calm. "The truth." Isabel shook her head, flipping through the pages. Her face drained of color as she read the clauses. The trust gave Lydia full ownership and control of the property, the land, and all assets connected to the estate. More than that, there was a clear clause. Any family member who attempted to remove or displace her would lose their claim entirely. Her fingers tightened around the papers. "No, this can't be right. Theodore and I, this house." "This house was built by my husband and me," Lydia interrupted, her tone firm for the first time. "We planned for the future. We protected what we built. You cannot touch it, Isabel. Isabel's laugh returned, but it was hollow now. You expect me to believe this? This could be a trick. Old papers. Outdated. Worthless. The seal was renewed 6 months ago, Lydia said softly. I made sure. Isabel flipped the page again, her eyes darting over the legal stamp, the signatures, the date. She bit her lip. No, this isn't possible. It is, Lydia replied. And it always was. Isabel's hand trembled as she shoved the papers back into the box. Her voice grew shrill. You've been planning this. You wanted me to look like a fool. I wanted protection, Lydia said, her words slow and deliberate. From anyone who would try to take what is not theirs. For the first time, Isabel's confidence cracked. She looked over her shoulder, as if hoping Theodore would appear and side with her. But the house was quiet. Theodore was still away, and she stood alone with the evidence of her greed. Her jaw tightened. When Theodore sees this, he'll choose me. He'll believe me. Lydia's eyes softened, though her voice remained firm. When Theodore sees this, he will see the truth. You locked me out of my own kitchen. You showed your heart before he even had the chance to read these papers. The words struck like stone. Isabel's face burned. She wanted to shout, to slam the door in Lydia's face, to tear the papers into shreds. But the seal, the signatures, the very weight of the box kept her frozen. Get out of my way, Isabel muttered finally, clutching the box to her chest as if hiding it would erase what she saw. She hurried past Lydia into the living room, pacing back and forth. Her breathing was quick, shallow. She whispered to herself, It doesn't matter. He loves me. He'll believe me. He has to. Lydia followed her at a distance, her steps measured. She didn't try to take the box back. She didn't need to. The truth was already out, heavy in Isabel's hands. The sound of a key turning in the front door broke the silence. Both women froze. Theodore's voice came into the hallway, warm and casual. Mom. Isabel? I'm home early. Isabel's face went pale. She looked down at the box, at the papers sticking out, then back at Lydia, who stood calm and silent. Theodore stepped inside, setting his suitcase down. He saw his mother standing still, and his wife clutching the box with trembling hands. His smile faded. What's going on here? The air grew tight, the silence louder than any argument. Isabel opened her mouth, but no words came. The box felt like a weight dragging her down. Lydia's eyes met her son's. The truth, Lydia said gently, has finally come out. And in that moment, everything Isabel had built with lies and arrogance began to fall apart. Theodore Harper stood in the doorway, suitcase still at his side. His eyes shifted from his mother's calm face to his wife's trembling hands clutching the wooden box. A quiet heaviness filled the room. Isabel, he asked slowly, why are you holding that? Isabel forced a smile, too wide, too shaky. Oh, this? It's nothing, just some old papers. I was helping your mother clean. Her voice cracked at the end. She tried to push the box behind her back, but the corner of the trust document stuck out. Lydia didn't move. Her voice was steady low but firm. Theodore. She locked me out of my own kitchen this morning. She told me I didn't need it anymore. Theodore frowned, confused. He looked at Isabel. What? That can't be true. It isn't. Isabel snapped quickly. She's exaggerating. I was just reorganizing. I wanted to surprise you with a fresh, modern kitchen. She misunderstood. Lydia raised one hand gently, stopping her. Do not lie, Isabel. The truth is in the box you're holding. Theodore's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward and pulled the box from Isabel's hands. She tried to resist for a second, but his grip was stronger. He opened it, saw the stack of documents, and unfolded the first page. His breath caught. Living trust agreement, he read aloud. His eyes scanned the words. Ownership. Full control. In Lydia's name. The clause about family members who tried to displace her. Every word was sharp and clear. He looked up at Isabel. His face hardened. What is this? Why are you holding it? Isabel's voice wavered. She planted it. She wanted to turn you against me. Theodore, you know how she feels about me. She's never accepted me as family. Enough. Theodore's tone was sharper than Isabel had ever heard before. He turned to his mother. Is this real? Lydia nodded once. Yes. Your father and I created it together. And after he passed, I renewed it to make sure no one could ever push me out of my home. Isabel stepped forward, panic rising in her voice. Theodore, listen to me. I was only trying to make things better. She clings to the past. She won't let go, and we're supposed to build a future. Don't you see? She's standing in the way. Theodore stared at her, disbelief spreading across his face. In the way? This is my mother. This is her home. She welcomed you in, and you locked her out of her own kitchen? Isabel's eyes filled with tears, but they were desperate, not sorrowful. I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted us to have control. To finally start living without her rules. Theodore's voice grew heavy. Her rules? Isabel, these are not rules. This is respect. This house, this life, was built by my parents. And you thought you could erase that with a lock and a smug smile. Isabel's tears spilled over. She reached for his arm. Please, you know I love you. I did it for us. Don't let her come between us. But Theodore stepped back. He looked at her as though he was seeing her for the first time. The trust document trembled in his hands, the official stamp burning into his mind. Everything his mother had said was true, and everything Isabel had done lined up with a cruel, selfish plan. Lydia finally spoke again, her voice quiet but piercing. I did not want to show him this today, Isabel. But you forced it. You wanted to take what is not yours, and now you've lost everything. Isabel turned, her face contorted with anger and fear. You think you've won, she hissed. Theodore needs me. He loves me. He'll never choose you over me. Theodore's answer came like a stone dropped into water. I don't have to choose. You've already chosen for me. You chose greed. You chose lies. You chose to humiliate my mother. He slammed the papers back into the box. And for that, I can't stand by your side. Isabel gasped as if he had struck her. No, you don't mean that. You're just upset. You'll forgive me. But Theodore's face was firm, his jaw set. He turned away from her and looked at his mother. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have seen this sooner. Lydia's eyes softened, though her heart ached for her son. You see it now. That is enough. The silence stretched. Isabel stood trembling, her tears drying into streaks of anger. She wanted to scream, to break the box, to tear the papers apart. But she knew it was useless. The truth had already been spoken. Finally, Theodore walked to the stairs. Pack your things, Isabel. Tonight, you leave this house. The words hung in the air like a final verdict. Isabel's lips parted, but no sound came. Her body swayed, as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She clutched the back of the sofa to steady herself. Lydia watched quietly. Her husband's words echoed in her memory. People change. Paper doesn't. And now, the truth had broken open, leaving Isabel cornered, Theodore shattered, and Lydia stronger than ever. Theodore didn't raise his voice again. He stood very still, like a man who had just walked into a room and found the floor missing. Pack your things, he said, quieter now. Tonight you leave. Isabel stared at him, eyes glassy. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she put the box on the coffee table, as if it were on fire. You're throwing away our marriage over rules? She whispered. Respect, he said. Not rules. He didn't look away. And honesty. Isabel pressed her lips together and walked upstairs. Her footsteps were quick, angry. Lydia stayed in the living room, hands folded, breathing slowly. The kettle's empty place in the kitchen felt like a missing heartbeat, but she stood steady. Theodore picked up the trust and turned the pages again. He paused at his father's signature, traced the date with his thumb, and exhaled like a man coming up from deep water. I should have seen it, he said. You saw what you needed to, when you were ready, Lydia replied. That is enough. Isabel reappeared with a suitcase and a tote bag. She moved fast, opening drawers, grabbing chargers and makeup, a pair of shoes by the hallway bench. She kept saying little things to herself under her breath. Excuses, plans, fragments of sentences that meant nothing now. When she reached for the key hook by the door, Lydia noticed there were 2 new brass keys on a ring, labeled with a sticky note in Isabel's handwriting. Kitchen/patio. Isabel felt Lydia's gaze and turned defensive. I had extra made, she said. For efficiency. Theodore held out his hand. Keys. She hesitated. Then she dropped them into his palm and looked away. They stood in the entryway in a triangle no one wanted. Isabel looked at Theodore and tried one more time. Don't do this. We can fix it. I'll apologize. I'll cook with her. You locked her out, he said. You did it because you could. He lifted the ring of keys so she had to see them. That's not a mistake. That's a belief. Isabel's face hardened. You'll regret this, she said, voice low. When she's gone, you'll look around and see you have nothing. I'll have my mother's trust, he said, and for the first time the word meant more than a document. Open the door. He stepped aside. Isabel rolled the suitcase forward, the wheels ticking softly over the threshold. At the door, she glanced back at Lydia, a last small flare of pride lighting her eyes. "You won't always win," she said. Lydia answered gently. "I never wanted to win. I only wanted a home where kindness mattered." Theodore opened the door. Cool evening air touched their faces. Isabel stared at the darkness on the porch, squared her shoulders, and left. The suitcase thumped down the steps. When the door closed, the house let out a long, quiet sigh, like a held breath releasing. For a minute, no one spoke. Theodore leaned his forehead against the door. "I'm sorry," he said again, softer, more to himself than to her. Lydia touched his arm. "You don't need to be. Not tonight." He straightened. "I'll sleep in the guest room," he said. "Tomorrow I'll call an attorney. I'll send her to her sister's." He stopped, ran a hand through his hair, and turned toward the hallway. "Let me fix the locks first." The new brass plate on the kitchen door looked out of place in the old house. Theodore removed it with a screwdriver from the hall drawer, set the pieces neatly on a towel, and replaced the latch with the original spare that Lydia kept in a labeled tin. The work was simple, careful. When he was done, he stepped back. "Open it," he said. Lydia put her hand on the knob and turned. The kitchen door swung in, and the room greeted her with the faint smell of onions and something burned. Cabinets were open. The spice rack had been half emptied onto the counter. A new set of knives shone cold under the light. Lydia stood in the doorway, letting her eyes settle on the familiar things. Tile her husband chose, window glass with a tiny bubble in the corner, the chair Theodore had marked with crayons as a child. "Sit," Theodore said gently. "I'll clean." She smiled, tired but warm. "We'll do it together." They moved slowly, side by side. He closed the cabinet doors. She gathered the scattered jars and set them back in their places. He wrapped the knives and put them in a drawer. She wiped the counter, then reached for the old blue kettle and set it on the stove. When the flame caught, the small sound was like a promise returning. Steam rose. Cups clinked. The first sip of tea warmed Lydia's chest, and then the corners of her eyes. Theodore sat across from her at the table, elbows on knees, like a boy who had run too far too fast. "I thought building a future meant moving everything forward," he said, voice low. "I forgot the ground we were standing on." "Now you remember," she replied. "That is what matters." They spoke quietly for an hour, not about revenge, not about punishment, but about boundaries and care. He would handle the calls. She would keep the house keys. If Isabel wanted to speak, it would be through their attorneys. There would be no shouting matches, no scenes on the lawn, no more hidden changes in the name of progress. When the tea was gone, Theodore stood and washed the cups. Lydia dried them and set them in the cabinet. She turned off the kitchen light and stood in the doorway, looking back once. Everything was simple again, and that simplicity felt like strength. Days passed. Papers were filed. Theodore moved to the guest room while he arranged a small flat in a building near his office. He returned each evening to check on Lydia, to bring groceries, to sit at the kitchen table and listen. He apologized less and thanked her more. Isabel sent 2 long texts and 1 short one. Lydia read them and said nothing. The attorney replied for them. On a quiet afternoon, Theodore brought home a small wooden frame. Inside was a copy of the trust clause, the line about anyone who tried to remove Lydia losing their claim. He placed it, not on a wall, but in the drawer with the tea towels. "Not to show," he said, "but to remember." Lydia laughed softly. "Paper doesn't forget," she said, and he smiled at the echo. One morning, just before sunrise, Lydia woke the way she always had. The house held a peaceful silence, clean and whole. She slipped on her robe and walked down the hallway, touching the wall as she passed the photos. At the kitchen, she turned the knob and felt it move easily under her hand. The light clicked on. The kettle filled. The blue flame licked the metal and began its soft song. She stood at the window while the water heated, looking into the pale yard. The glass held the faint fog of her breath. In the reflection she saw herself, silver hair neat, eyes steady, and behind her the room she loved. She felt her husband there in the quiet way a memory feels like warmth. When the kettle sang, she poured. The tea steamed bright. She carried the cup to the table and sat in the chair with the small crayon mark that had never quite vanished. She closed her eyes and took a sip. Greed had tried to write new rules. Paper had remembered the truth. And Lydia, who never raised her voice and never begged, had turned the sail and come home.